Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today on personal development, digital safety, and technology use. We're delighted to have you joining us. So thank you to those of you who are joining us live, and a massive thank you as well to those of you who are catching up on the recording. So just to do some brief introductions of different people that you will be able to see on the screen. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Jono. I am the Deputy Principal Pastoral and the Designated Safeguarding Lead at OIC Brighton. I oversee all of the safeguarding across the school, the pastoral care, the well-being of students, working very closely with strategy tutors and the boarding house teams to ensure the best possible care for your children. We're delighted to have them here, and we've had a great start to our academic year so far. Next up, I'm just going to introduce and kind of go around the screen, and so if they can say a few words about what they do at the college, that would be great. I'm going to introduce Aaron. So Aaron is our brilliant head of department, head of maths, but over to you, Aaron, and what you do, what you're overseeing and within the college, and some bits on AI maybe as well.
Yeah, thanks, John, and thanks for taking the time, everyone, for joining in this morning, evening, or afternoon. So in addition to being the head of maths, I'm also in charge or lead on professional learning in the school, so professional development for teachers. And I also am the digital strategy lead in the school. So my role there is predominantly to produce and manage and I suppose audit the digital strategy that the school is running. So within that, there's a lot going on. And fundamentally, the reason that those roles kind of merge well together is because we are now in the world where AI is here. It's something that we have to deal with as part of the digital side of what we do. So how we as teachers engage with that technology, as well as how do we teach the students to do that ethically and correctly, if I say that in very caps, is an important thing that we must do. So my job is to make sure that we have a clear vision on how that works within teaching and learning, but also then guide the students on what is responsible use of AI. But also then some exciting stuff can come out of that as well. So there's some projects that we've got going on, which look at how do we develop critical thinking in addition to the use of AI, but also projects that we were working on externally from the college, which allows students to use the technology that they're going to be using when they leave us to go into university or into jobs, and how to embed that within STEM programs specifically. So the role is quite vast and varied and diverse, but it's exciting because they're all interconnected very, very much. And so, yeah, my job really is to take a vision and help the staff and the students realize that vision with the help of obviously Jono and others. So yeah, that's me in my role.
Thank you, Aaron. That's great. And Aaron, great introduction there and a bit of detail on his role. Aaron does have to head off. He is very busy, has lessons to teach and other things going on, but we're really grateful, Aaron, for you dialing on at the start of this presentation to introduce yourself. If you have any questions regarding digital strategy and what we're doing regarding AI here at the college, then Aaron is your go-to man for that. So great that he could join us for the start of the call. Thank you for joining us, Aaron. Great. Next up, thanks, and please feel free to head off. Next up, we've got Claire. Claire is our college counsellor, oversees our wellbeing service as well. By background, is a qualified teacher, taught in many different schools before, and Claire and I work very closely together on the pastoral care and wellbeing of our students. So Claire, do you want to talk a little bit about your role and how that may be impacting digital safety, technology use, and obviously we'll go on to our content a little bit later.
Yes, I've been working with young people now for most of my working life, and I would say that when smartphones came along and social media, it made a significant difference to kind of problems that young people were presenting with in the classroom, and then as I've retrained as a counsellor in the counselling room, and they all have a very individual relationship. So although we will make some fairly general comments today about social media use and iPhone use, and every young person I work with anyway has a very individual relationship as well. And so it's worth us bearing in mind the kind of personality that we know our young people have, and the kind of triggers, the kind of stress points they have, because whatever those are will affect how they are affected. And so I don't want to be completely negative about technology, because of course, as Aaron has just presented, there are so many amazing opportunities as part of the new tech world that we're in. But I certainly am aware that also there's an awful lot of pressure, there's quite a lot of stress and anxiety attached to the different kinds of input that they're getting all the time on these little devices, which seems so sort of engrossing and brilliant, and they're so excited by perhaps, but also that just comes with so much around image and around how to interact with others, and what kind of connections are going on in the world, and I think really none of us are ever really going to be fully aware of everything they see, but we need to try our best to monitor, to be aware of, to support and to structure what they are experiencing as much as possible. And I've got some things to look out for, which I will talk about later, and also certainly website which you can access, which will help. And also if any individual parents want to speak to me afterwards in any way because they're worried about the young person, then my contact details are available and we can talk it through.
Fantastic, thank you, Claire. And Phil Clare joins us as our personal development lead overseeing PSHE. You may know it better as Phil's super experienced in senior leadership teams and personal development and many other areas from across the globe, has worked internationally as well. So Phil, do you want to just introduce yourself and talk to us about how your role integrates digital safety and technology use?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. Thanks, Jono. I think my role is interesting, I think, because in the UK, you have to deliver PSHE. We normally call PSHE, we call it personal development here. Last year it's called life skills, but I kind of see my role a little bit as like trying to challenge the norms a little bit, because I think we live in a world which is just kind of dominated by grades and like academic excellence, and you must have an A star in maths, but I kind of trying to create a curriculum and an environment where that's challenged a little bit in a really healthy way, I think is important. Really, the vision here is when our kids leave this college, when they go out into the wider world, do they know how to look after themselves? Can they look after the people around them? And can they look after the environment that's around them as well? And there's so many little nuances and little skills that feed into that. And so the personal development curriculum is about trying to kind of touch on lots of those points, generate discussion around that, get kids to start to think a little bit broader than, okay, I've got an exam in a week and I want to get this grade, because life is so much vaster, it's not even a word, bigger, broader, more amazing than we kind of sometimes give it credit for. We sometimes get caught in the detail. So I will talk a little bit about what we do in the curriculum and how we try and approach digital safety a little bit. I'll try and give you some examples, but yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'll speak to you in a second.
Great, thank you, Phil. Fantastic. So we're going to get started now with our program. I'm going to start by talking to us, just giving some background from a safeguarding perspective when we talk about particularly about digital safety, staying safe online. So I would like to outline first of all who are the key people at the college, other than those people on this call, to be liaising with about any concerns, or if you would like any advice or any further information on anything that we do. I'm going to talk through that. I'm also going to talk through just from a safeguarding perspective, some things to be aware of and some things that we've spoken to about our staff, things such as VPNs and some different legislation that has come into play in the last calendar year within the UK, so that everyone's really clear on that. I'm also going to flag just some popular apps that young people are using, just to give you a bit of background into those and what they are. And then I'll hand on to Claire, who will talk us through more about the impact and how potentially these things can impact our young people and how we can support their mental health with it. So here we go. First of all, I just want to flag up the safeguarding team at the college. So I'm the designated safeguarding lead, as I've spoken about previously. Our director of boarding, Mr. Tom Layton, is also a designated safeguarding lead within the school, or a deputy designated safeguarding lead. Tom oversees our whole boarding provision here at OIC Brighton and has a wealth of experience as having been a DSL at a previous school. And so Tom and I work very closely together. And then we've got Dr. Gemma Hannon, who is our Deputy Principal Academic. She's also on the safeguarding team. Gemma is really heavily involved in supporting with curriculum development and making sure that we've got all the latest legislation and all of the latest updates that we need to have across all of our curriculum. And so the three of us work very closely together as a safeguarding team, and we work particularly regarding any internet or online safety issues. As a way of a background to what we have in place here at OIC Brighton, as is required by us, by the Department for Education, which is essentially a department of the government, their requirement for us as a school in the UK is that we must have filtering and monitoring in place. And so we have one Wi-Fi network here at OIC Brighton, and it is both filtered and monitored. And just to put that in simple terms, the filtering is where there's a multitude of websites which are harmful, which are filtered or blocked, in other words, so students are not able to access those. And then there is the monitoring side. And the monitoring side is where myself and the safeguarding team are sent information about where a student potentially tries to access a website that may be harmful, or indeed is maybe typing something into to their keyboard, which could be considered harmful or concerning. We have a policy here for bring your own device. And so students obviously have brought their own devices, are in control of their own devices. But as soon as they access the education Wi-Fi network, which is the only network that they have access to here, then that's really heavily controlled and kept safe. We're also in a very rural environment here, just on the outskirts of Brighton, at the foot of the South Downs National Park. And so our mobile phone signal is actually quite poor. There's only a few networks that work very well. And from an online safety perspective, we see that as a positive, because we are well aware and not naive to the fact that young people will be using their own data or other ways to try and access things. And so we are aware of that, and we've got ways of tracking and monitoring that as well. Right, I'm going to come on to something now, just from a legislation perspective, that I wanted to just pop up in front of you. This has come from the Online Safety Act from the 25th of July. And essentially, you may or may not be aware from the UK, within the UK, that there was an Online Safety Act that was passed back in July that went to show that essentially you had to have ID attached to any login to a pornographic website. Now, I'm aware that obviously where we are here, it's 1 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, and some of these topics we're going to be looking at may be relatively alarming, but it's really important to talk openly and honestly about them. And so across the UK on the 25th of July, sorry that my slide doesn't quite show that, we have the Online Safety Act, which was passed. And essentially what that meant was that either someone had to provide their driving license or their passport in order to access a harmful or pornographic website. And what we saw as a result of that, if you look at the graph on the right-hand side, what we saw as a result of the rise in obviously people being blocked from accessing these websites was a significant increase in the use of VPNs. Now, if you're not well acquainted with what a VPN is, there's a really great explanation on the left-hand side of your screen that you can see. A VPN is a virtual private network, and how it works, you can see through those images. It connects to websites, but it uses a different ISP, an internet service provider, and that may be based somewhere else around the globe. And so in simple terms, if you think about it as I'm here in OIC Brighton, if I use a VPN, I can make it appear as if I'm using the internet anywhere else around the world, be that any major city or country, and it bypasses the network or the blocks that particular countries have. Now, these are quite popular for our students. We're aware of that because obviously there's certain nationalities. We've got students from 31 different nationalities here at OIC Brighton, where there's certain parts of the internet, be that our Chinese students from Hong Kong, students from Nigeria, students from Russia, or many of the European countries that we have students from. Some of the things they're not able to access in the UK. And so students will often try and use a VPN in order to access those websites back in their home country. And so what do we do to protect our students from that? Well, first of all, we talk about it, and we're really clear about why it's important that they're aware that the VPN use is dangerous. But also, we've got some very careful software that is regularly blocking any access to VPNs, and it's updated on a regular basis. It's governed by our larger parent company, Nord Anglia, and they update that really regularly so that there's VPNs coming online all the time. And we want to protect our young people from, bypassing UK law or other things that happen here in the UK. And so I just wanted to flag that to you. I'm sure you're all aware of VPNs and you know exactly what they are, but we do monitor them here. We do block them on a regular basis. And if we ever find out, which we often do, that a student's tried to circumnavigate the system by accessing a VPN, we would sit them down and have a conversation, and we'd be contacting you as parents about that as well. So that's just a really key piece of legislation regarding in the UK about over 18s. Someone has to be over 18 to access a pornographic website now, and it has to be ID proof. And so statistically, we've seen a massive drop in access across the UK to pornographic websites. And also, as a result of that, VPNs have massively increased as well. Now, we have an acceptable usage policy here at Oxford International College Brighton, and we go through this in detail with our students. And it's one of the first things that we do with our students is to go back to the acceptable uses policy. We have it printed on one side of A4. And if you want to see that, then that is available for you to look at on our website. If you go to the policies page on our website, you'll be able to see our acceptable ICT usage policy. And in the appendix at the bottom is the one-page agreement that we ask our young people to look at and to agree to. And essentially what that does is ensure safer internet use. And it has a series of rules and not just recommendations, but rules and requirements that students have to have and what they're agreeing to do in terms of having safe internet use, safe technology use, and making sure that they're aware of what they can and can't do here at OIC Brighton. So do have a look for that. If for any reason you're not able to find that, then I'd be very happy for you to email me and I can send you a copy of that directly. But it's hopefully helpful for you to see what it is that we agree to, what the students agree to, and what they don't agree to. So the final thing, just from a structural perspective to make you aware of, is that we obviously cut off the Wi-Fi as well. For some of our students, this is quite controversial, but we cut it off at night time because we believe in the importance of good sleep. And so at 11 o'clock, across the sixth form, and for 10 o'clock across other students, the Wi-Fi is essentially cut off so that we can encourage them to get with good sleep and to wake up the next day feeling refreshed and ready to go. So that's another structural thing to make you aware of. Okay, I'm briefly now just going to talk you through some apps for you to be aware of. This is a recently updated image for you to be aware of, and I want to just give you a brief overview of the different apps to be aware of, why they may be harmful, and potential age restrictions as well, and what you need to be mindful of. Some of these will be very popular apps or images that you've seen many times. Other ones not so much. So you've got the traditional social media ones on there, and obviously the ones that we would assume that lots of people would already be aware of: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, are all very popular apps. But Snapchat tends to be one of the largest, if not the largest, used social media platform in the UK. Very popular amongst young people, and they use it often to message one another as well. It also allows users to send photos and videos that disappear after they are received. And so we talk a lot about Snapchat, the use of it and the dangers of it. So that's something to be mindful of. And we can go into more detail. If you look at our online user policy, which is on the website, that does go into more detail about age restrictions around particular websites and sites that are used. But generally, we recognise that there's not massively good blocks or age checks on these apps, and therefore our assumption would be that all of our students at some point have either had access to these or are trying to use them. And so our approach when it comes to the apps that you see on the screen is to make sure that we are educating our young people about them so they know the dangers. We've got Scout, location-based dating app. And obviously under 17s aren't allowed to share private photos on it. It would be, kids can create an account using a different age. So we want to be really mindful of that. WhatsApp and Instagram, I'm sure you'll all be very well acquainted with. And then we'll move down and just, again, to make you aware of some other apps. Badoo is a dating and social network app, again, where things can be shared. You've got Kik, allows anyone to contact and direct messages to young people. And so again, if you see this, then on your young person's phone, on your child's phone, then we would recommend that that's potentially dangerous and therefore something that they should be checking. Discord and Meet Me. So Discord allows users to talk to friends and strangers in real time whilst playing games. Really popular, but again, there's some dangers there. It's potential, it unfortunately is renowned for some racism, from explicit content, cyberbullying. Meet Me is a dating social media app, again, that young people could access if they gave the wrong age. Monkey is a live video chat app that connects users to random strangers worldwide. Again, just really opens up young people to some really quite concerning things. So we would be talking to them about that, and we would advise that you do check your child's phone for what apps they've got downloaded. Among Us is sort of starting to go out of fashion a little bit now, but it's a space-themed online multiplayer social game. Lots of chat that can happen via that. Holler, again, is a video chat app where you can meet random people, and obviously there's dangers that are attached to that, with young people pretending to be older and maybe speaking to people that may be concerning. The Best Secret Folder app is especially designed to hide photos and videos, and so it uses password protection. And essentially, it's where people may be hiding things on their phones, photos or videos that perhaps they don't want you or other people to see. Yik Yak is a location-based network app to connect people around a specific location. And then not the normal calculator app, but calculator with a percentage sign at the end app is one of several apps, again, similar to Best Secret Folder, that hides photos, videos, files, and browser history as well. Obviously, these ones that you can see here are sort of slightly more popular, but worth flagging. X, also previously known as Twitter, which I'm sure you're all aware of. There's different dating apps that are available out there. Some are featured on here. You've got Grindr, the Hilly app or the Highly app. And so lots of different just things for you to be aware of that would be inappropriate for students and young people to be accessing. Roblox, I'm sure you've all heard of, perhaps more popular with some of the younger students in the college, an online gaming platform where users can play the games designed by others. And then there's just some further apps, 3 apps at the bottom there. Whisper, anonymous social network, quite strange, but it promotes sharing secrets with strangers. Live Me is a live video streaming app that uses geolocation to share videos. And so that's quite popular with influencers or other people that are using that. And then finally, Reddit is a chat and discussion board app. It may be that sometimes you type a question into Google and you'll see Reddit coming up with a response to what that is. Reviewers on occasion have been confronted with potential racism, explicit content and more, and so we would be mindful and advise our students about that too. I'm well aware there are hundreds, maybe even thousands more apps that I could be showing you, but I just wanted to give you an overview of that. So I hope that's been helpful, understanding what we're doing to protect our young people from an infrastructure perspective, some updates on some apps, and now I'm going to hand over to Claire, who's going to talk to us about mental health and social media.
Yeah, hello. So I am the college counsellor, and so I do see quite a few students for one-to-one sessions, but I do also offer mental health advice and support and signposting beyond that role, which is why you know, I wanted to talk to you today a bit about the mental health repercussions of being very immersed in social media. And there's a very good website called Young Minds, which we will share and I can put in the chat. And it's a website which is really got lots of great advice for young people and for parents around social media use and mental health in general. But sometimes it feels like, why is it so harmful? You know, they seem to be absorbed, they're enjoying it, they find it exciting to be on social media sites and on their iPhones. But unfortunately, some of the apps that we've just seen create a kind of image of the world that is perfect. And we know all the filters that we can use. Young people can change their image significantly so that they look significantly older than they actually are. They can also, you know, use filters which obviously that gives them flawless skin and all of those things which we might have assumed was a fashion magazine thing, but is now something anyone can do. So you can change your image quite a lot, and then you end up with quite a lot of young people comparing themselves to others and also having comments made about their physical selves, or which can be very harmful and which they can dwell on. And in the past, of course, people have always had comments that they've had to deal with about their physical appearance, but there's something very invasive about actually having a photograph of yourself and somebody or many people commenting on that photograph. And that is a unique new era kind of thing for our young people, that is something which they're having to manage. And also, you know, in the past, if we weren't invited out to a party or an event, we just weren't there and we wouldn't have known about it. But the number of times, even here in this small environment with, you know, a really lovely campus environment here, still we have some people that will find that they weren't invited somewhere because they see it on their social media feed. And that's really difficult for people to manage, but it also almost addictively means you're sort of checking in to see if there's been another event which you haven't been a part of. So there's I think individuals become very sort of closely attached to their friends on their social media, almost sort of tracking them, and not in a sort of way that's really unpleasant or, you know, untoward, but just more, I want to see what you're doing because I want to see if you still care about me. And unfortunately, it becomes really addictive, just that following, just that being aware of what other people are doing all the time. Also, we have had quite a lot of young people, if they're on those chats, those chat sites where views are expressed and reports and news, and obviously we're aware that it's sometimes fake news, but more than that, sometimes it's discussions which they are privy to, where you don't get a broad point of view, and that's what we mean by echo chamber. That really we get the same view, and not really a variety of opinion, and so individuals, young people, can become really quite set in a viewpoint which they feel has been supported, and perhaps haven't for themselves considered and thought about and analysed and explored as to whether they actually agree with it. And then that is something which Phil's work in our personal development scheme of work is really good at trying to work on. But I think it's worth just being aware when young people are looking upset, looking emotional, perhaps have changed we're thinking about just these three things on the screen now. They're changing their opinion, their appearance, and they're looking very closely at the way they look. They're perhaps losing a lot of weight. They're perhaps working out more than they used to. They're perhaps a bit more obsessed in their protein powders and all of that. Then we have to be aware of that. If they are quite upset and low, and that could be because they've not been invited somewhere, something's going on in social media. And in terms of the echo chamber, if we think about the fact that perhaps there's expressing an opinion and you think, oh, that's not what you normally think, and that isn't what we as a family would normally say, and it's just worth checking in with them and just saying, oh, is that really what you think about how we should be, about people from other cultures, or women or men, or so it's just worth just being vigilant, I think, about opinions which don't seem to fit with what you know of your child or young person. Also, lots of those websites have streaks where you have to keep responding, and we do have a really rigorous mobile phone policy here, but we can have people rushing back at break or lunch to try and catch up with what they might feel is important to catch up with, and because they have travelled and many of them are from far away from old friends, sometimes it's really important for them to make those connections. But if they're really needing to keep up these kind of chains of communication, they can be really absorbing, and they're taking them away from basically their actual peer group here and their actual experience here, and the lunchtime clubs which they could be a part of, and all of the other things which they can do, and eating, things which are really essential and important. Also, lots of these sites, TikTok has been in the news so much, and so have certain like Snapchat, for instance, because images come up so quickly and come and go, that there's been a lot of research done about the number of young people who have seen some really unpleasant images or sexualized images, and it can be very triggering. It almost as well, it's almost become normal for individuals to see these images coming sort of through their phone, so much so that they might not even mention it to us. But we, the more we're aware of, once again, the changing mood, the sort of tears or the sort of stress or the anxiety that our young person might be displaying, it just might be worth considering, have they seen something which they want to talk about, or why are they talking about that today? Does that mean that something has triggered that? Because they are literally bombarded with so much. And I feel like, I'm saying something really obvious that you all know, but in terms of mental health, I don't know that we fully understand how deeply young people can feel, upset and low, and that they don't fit, and that their friends don't like them, and all these things which can develop. And one of the main problems that we have found with young people is, if they are on their iPhones close to sleep, their brains are engaged. And, we all know it's very fast and flashy, and they will really struggle to sleep because their brain is doing something completely different. And so most people say the advice for sleep hygiene is that you should put your phone down at least an hour before you go to sleep. And obviously, with some of our systems in place, we absolutely can ensure that they don't have their phones with them, but they may have a device. And it's just that sort of trying to detox, trying to make sure that you're aware of your need to sleep. Also, I don't think that necessarily the world is, I mean, I think the world is obviously not a very easy place to be in at the moment. There's an awful lot going on, but I think there always has been a lot of wars going on and a lot of difficult things for people to manage and cope with. But what we have found with social media is that, and with iPhones in general, with news feeds, with everything, is that actually people are very informed all the time of anything that happens in the news straight away as soon as it happens, as well as images connected to it. And so it's less easy to choose whether you're a part of that or whether you're connecting to that. And I think it's really important that our young people are involved with keeping up with current affairs, but it's just bearing in mind that perhaps they need to, or we need to be aware, and they need to be aware that actually it's not always healthy to be that involved and that aware all the time, and to try and process things a bit better, or maybe even have times where they aren't going to have their phones. So, you know, they're coming up to an exam, they're coming up to some studies. Is hearing about the news today going to help your mental well-being? And once again, I'm not saying don't be involved in the world, but I'm just saying, like, is it a good every day to constantly be having the latest news reports? Might not be healthy. Yeah, and so really what you're looking out for in terms of parenting is that your young person just has a significant change in how they respond and how they're being with you, or in general. And if they aren't calling as much, or you just notice their mood different when they come home, it's just really worth considering whether anything's happened in terms of what's going on. And so, you know, there's some really simple advice here, which is to try and process or self-check, like, what is going on? Am I stressed? I've just looked at my phone. There's a connection, you know, is it possible that I could unfollow that person? You know, is it actually as dramatic and as awful to unfollow or to take that app down? Is it really, you know, can I process it? And it's difficult because we have a relationship with our young people. They have a relationship with their phones, and we're not always aware of what that relationship is. But just, you know, this simple advice of just put it down. Why don't you have an afternoon without your phone? Why don't you not put it next to your bed when you go to sleep? You know, why don't you unfollow that friend that, you know, you used to have, but where the relationship isn't secure at the moment and it's making you unhappy? So it's just trying to do that. And also in terms of relationships, it's always better to try and talk to someone. It's always better to try and speak to them face to face, or actually hear their voice and actually have a conversation. And so I think the young people that are conducting their whole friendships on phones just need to be aware that that's actually not always the best way, and actually there could be a lot of miscommunication through that relationship if you don't if you're not aware that actually it's fairly unhealthy to constantly text them and to read between the lines, or to speak to someone and they haven't responded to you. They haven't you know, there's a massive gap and they haven't responded. Well, and that's maybe something that young people need to manage a bit better. Because you're worried about your young person, then do get in touch.
Thank you so much, Claire. Really helpful advice there. And please do reach out to Claire or any of us. I've put into the chat our contact details, those who are on this call. We've also put a couple of helpful websites in. So Claire referred to Young Minds there. There's also the UK Safer Internet Centre, which has got some very helpful and useful advice for parents too. So hopefully you can see those in the chat. If for any reason you can't, then drop one of us an email and we'll get those over to you. I'm going to hand over to Phil now, our personal development PSHE lead, who's going to talk us through what we cover in curriculum and how we approach that.
Hi everyone. So I've just it's quite a broad topic, right? So I've really tried to just be really concise. From a curriculum point of view, our approach to digital safety is that essentially we don't want to teach something, move on from it, and then never teach it again or revisit that. Because if you think about a child who comes in year 9 and then leaves in year 13, there's like vast levels of difference in terms of their maturity and what they're able to talk about and discuss and think about. So we use a thing called a spiral curriculum, which is essentially we try to introduce a topic, revisit it at different points with a little bit more depth and kind of maturity. And really, the approach to it is, how can we talk about a topic without telling someone the answer? How can we get our students to think about something and then kind of arrive at a destination where they've kind of come up with the answer almost themselves, or they thought, oh, do you know what? I think this now, or I want to do this now. It's so much more powerful if they're making their own choice rather than just older adults just telling them what to do. And so our curriculum is very much based around questioning, discussion, and then kind of having an environment where you're not wrong. Like it's okay to kind of have a different opinion or to have that challenged. And so I've got a few examples I'm just going to run through. One with happiness is on here, so you can see on the slide we've got in year 9 we do a happiness unit. It's about 4 or 5 weeks long. There's a little project at the end of it where we make a little happiness video, and really the point of that unit is to start by looking at the impact of social media on ourselves and what we think happiness looks like, because with social media it portrays that our lives should be perfect all the time or amazing all the time. We should have a massive yacht or a great car or a huge house and loads of friends. And so we start to kind of look at the impact of those messages coming through our phones or our screens all the time. And then the students then discuss that. So what happens when we're kind of faced with unrealistic expectations a lot? What should my life look like? If it doesn't look like that, how do I feel? How does that make me feel? They do another identity unit as well, where we talk about whether people are the same online as they are in person. And that kind of helps them to think about their own authenticity and the difference between our perception of what something should be like and its actual reality. So if I go to, a concert or a gig and I take a video of that, I can edit all the best bits and it looks amazing. But actually, most of the time, I didn't like all of the songs. I only really liked one of them, and that was the one that I took all the videos of. But how does that look online to someone else who's watching that? Or like Claire said, with you can put filters on everything now. So I looked amazing this night and I looked really beautiful the whole time and I wore a really cool outfit, but really that was a very carefully crafted edit. And so we start to talk about that in a little bit of detail. We then we actually have a whole unit in year 10 on social media, which ends, I quite like the end of this one. It's like a nice project because they essentially write a letter to themselves and to social media where it's called Dear Social Media, and they think about their current relationship with social media and they reflect on what they want it to look like in the future. And that's quite powerful, that one. We did a display on it last year, and some of the things that the students writ were really insightful, because we all have social media in our life, and so we have to consider what role that takes. Is it a powerful role, or do we have control over it? And often students haven't even thought about that at all. So we ask questions like, does social media actually make us more social, or is it quite an isolating thing where I'm just stuck on my phone all day? Or does it create an environment where I'm kind of pushed away from my friends or feeling jealous of my friends or angry at my friends for no reason? I really like that unit. That's a great one. And then in year 13, another example that we have is we revisit that happiness unit that we kind of first talked about 5 years ago in year 9. But this time it's a lot deeper, and we kind of talk about its influence on our well-being and that sense of control over happiness, because we're all striving to be happy all the time and having an incredible life. That's a big part of being a human, is trying to create an environment where we're happy. But is it possible to be happy all the time? And how do I hold on to happiness if I've got it? And they're really big questions. We're actually teaching that unit at the moment with year 13. It's been really interesting, actually, the different perspectives of our students on what life should feel like, not in terms of what we achieve or where we go or where we end up, but just actually the feeling of it. It's been really interesting discussions in that one. We obviously have, alongside that, like a lot of our relationships are done and managed through social media now via digital means. So we have a love and relationships unit, which kind of looks at a lot more complexity around some of the issues that students are facing at the moment, like consent, revenge porn, the influence of like social media on your relationship as well. We challenge toxic masculinity, which is a big thing at the moment. Incel culture. You've got online influencers like Andrew Tate, who was quite big just about a year and a half, 2 years ago now. It's kind of dropped off the radar a little bit. But really, we're trying to help students to question what they see. Like, what is the message that I'm being confronted with here? Am I living in a little bit of an echo chamber? And if they can question something, that is really, really powerful. And because they can then start to make decisions off the back of that, and they can start to paint a picture and an understanding in their own life of what healthy relationships actually look like. But the initial part of being able to question something is a skill that, you know, it takes time, and that's the hard bit, I think. In January, we have like a whole school unit on RSHE, and so the whole school has about 3 or 4 lessons on relationships and sex education. Obviously, depending on the year group, the content is very different, but in those sessions, they directly address a lot of things to do with online behavior. So that's topics like sexting, consent, pornography, the expectations of what a relationship should look like online, how social media shapes our approach to relationships and our approach to like our identity as well. We have some external providers who come in and do that for us, actually, which is great. I've actually linked them in the chat if you want to see their websites with a little bit more detail, because it actually breaks down what they go through in each of their units as well. And then alongside that, we have a few other external bits of support and expert voices that come in. Sussex Police come in, which is great. They normally come in during Online Safety Week, and they talk to the students about the law in terms of image sharing, and they give like practical guidance on how to conduct themselves in like a healthy, responsible way with their device. But the law is an interesting one because most of the time students are receiving or sharing things that are completely unacceptable, but they don't know it's against the law. So kind of having that bit more of a hard line is usually quite useful. So they were just kind of like a few snippets that came to my head about our curriculum when I kind of thought about just the digital aspect. I think kind of the closing message is our aim is to kind of help students become reflective. And I personally think that's the most important step. Like, how do we encourage our students to think about something, consider it? And if they can do that first step and question what they see, then they're more likely to then become a responsible digital citizen, because they're thinking for themselves, you know, and they're making their own choices, or at least it feels like that for them. So kind of just telling students what to do, in some respects, like you get a good outcome from that, but they need to be empowered to make those decisions themselves, and that comes from like discussion and that reflective practice. People who understand the positives and the pressures of living online, they're more likely to make good choices. And so yeah, that was just like a whistle-stop tour to kind of what came into my head about our current curriculum. I'm sure there's other things that I've missed, but if you've got any particular questions, then you can fire them at me in a second.
Thank you, Phil. Brilliant. So there we go. So we've covered a variety of different issues. Phil's brilliantly taken us through our personal development program and how we address key issues there. We've talked about digital safety and technology use. And yeah, just really grateful for you all for joining us. I have put into both the chat and into the Q&A section, if you did have any questions. I'm aware that you guys will have a setting so you're not able to unmute your mic. So the way that you can ask questions is either by going to the Q&A box and putting a question in there, or indeed if you want to go to the chat function, then you can ask chat there. But just a reminder, whilst I give you a moment to do that, our contact details are available in the chat. So there's myself, Claire's, Phil's and Aaron, who's our digital strategy lead that you met earlier. We've then given a couple of helpful websites to look at, the Young Minds and Safer Internet website, and then Phil very helpfully has put in the external providers that we use here at OICB. So do have a look through those different providers. As it stands, I can't see any questions in the chat specifically, so we are all available on email, so please do send us a message if you have that. But otherwise, we're going to close the webinar there. And again, thank you so much for attending, and thank you to those who are attending online and watching later on. Take care, everyone, and thanks to Phil and Claire. Take care.